Alright, this one should be pretty quick, but this is the last one in the series, possibly. What I'm going to show you here is a lot of times I'll hear people talk about the scope in the studio, and it's a cool tool in there they don't really never use for much. But basically, if you understand that, there's another video in there about complex waveforms. You really got to understand what's happening in a complex wave or a polar waveform, a summed waveform, a sum of a bunch of other um, tracks or other sinusoids that are making a complex waveform. But that's not, I don't want to get into all the complexity of that. If you really don't understand what the scope's showing, to really explain to you, I'm not going to make a 4-hour video on that right now. The only thing I wanted to show is that the same techniques you've seen in the previous videos of putting you can do that with this thing also. Put the scope on that bus, the last end bus, enable the side chain, go back to all those buses for all those groups or those tracks, and put a send on those and side chain that to your scope. And basically, that you can do the same kind of thing. With this, it's really cool because if you've got like on this one that you got D math, which is your A and B, it's basically giving you a summed waveform of the entire mix. And then on C, here's your inputs. So basically, like right now, you can see I got the guitar on it. Or I'll go to my side chain on the sends, and I'll turn that one off. And I'll go and turn the one on that's for the choir. And you can see what it's doing. If you understand a little bit about it, basically that what this is all the sinusoids here, or all these complex polar waveforms. It's basically averaging them, between the differences in their rises and falls that gives you what this polar complex waveform here is. Multiplications and divisions. It's a little more complex than that, but that's a real basic understanding to give, so that it's not like some kind of alien thing that you got no understanding of what it's doing. But the cool thing is it gives you a whole nother tool that you can go through, and if you're hearing problems, you're seeing problems, you've got another tool in your line while you're doing your EQ work between those tracks, that you've got some problem there, and you go through there and you start, putting on C here, the different tracks, go, oh, well, I don't know that chorus is the problem, but it might be this guitar part, and then one-shotting it, at some area, and going, okay, what's happening here? It's this area here, it's really getting boosted down there, so what is the problem? That might be the problem, because sometimes these waveforms will look very periodic, and so, like you see this area here looks a lot like this area right here, and sometimes they're very quasi-periodic. Like you can see this looks a lot like that, and it's very periodic, but this here, it's lower. That's a good sign of a quasi-periodic waveform, which it's basically, it's coming to the same form, but it's not periodic, it's quasi. This looks very periodic, this and this. But I'm not going to get into the complexities of trying to use this to really understand the complex polar waveform. But basically, when you're seeing the spectrogram for a little short area, it's the same thing as looking at this in a little short area. So if you do a little bit of reading on it and spend a little bit of time understanding it, that you can really use this tool to help shape your spectral content also. But the basic idea of this video is just to show you that you can use that technique in the other videos with your scope like this. So, and it might open up some doors to you, dude, that you start messing around a little bit and looking at it, and you start to understand that a little bit better, and you have a much better understanding of the complex waveform when you're looking in your event viewer, when you're looking at, a guitar track, what exactly the hell that is, and it might help you to understand that. And it's just another tool that you can use, just like the spectrometer and the EQ, to see the complex waveform and the spectral content in a different way. And so basically, I just made this video just real quick to point that out, that it can do, so you can sidechain it the same way to get a comparison of the mix and those individual tracks, to see what's going on with it. And if you spend some time really studying it a little bit to understand what that is, what is this track here? What is that doing to it? There's a little dip there. I don't know, what is that? And you understand what's happening when it starts trying to sum This is the guitar track, and the other one you were looking at is the choir, and this over here is the bass, and another one is this. And you're looking at them and you're seeing what those amplitude changes, that basically those amplitude changes are working out the spectral content of like a distorted sinusoid, that how it interpolates it, or how it interprets it. But it's another tool that, if you understand the scope at all, that it's another huge tool that you can throw in there next to the EQ and the spectrometer to really get another perspective of what's happening. Because sometimes you might not see it as well there, but you go in here and look at this boost here, and then start trying to find the instrument that's the issue, because it's rising. You're getting this really high peak in dB level here, and what's causing that? Why right in here am I getting this distorted sinusoid? It's really peaking up right in there. What's causing the issue? Is it a summation of the choir there and that bass? Those two things are a problem. I need to do something with them, and EQ them in some certain frequencies, or to help shape this timbre. Basically what it is, so that it's helping to shape this timbre. And so I just want to point that out real quick. I'm not going to get too in depth in that or too technical. If you don't understand anything about the scope or what it does, there's lots of other things. I'm not going to go into the whole scope, but that's that function of it, to help you visualize the spectral content and the timbre content, and the summed content of your mix or individual tracks as in comparison. Alright, dude, so there you are, right? You've got a really cool tool, that EQ on each one of those tracks or groups. You've got a spectrometer that's split, so you can see the actual mix, and you can see the individual group from this one here coming in. To get a good idea of it, you can switch over to your EQ there, and to do some real fine tuning over here and see what it's doing to the blue mix, and how it's affecting, when this starts changing, how it's affecting the mix. And also another tool in your scope to actually really fine tune it by looking at what's happening in actual polar complex waveforms and the timbres of it. That can also be another huge tool that might help you pinpoint some issues and things like that. So I hope that series was really helpful, and I certainly hope that those tools and setting up your studio like that when you're doing that it really helps you seeing how to shape the spectral content in a whole new way. And that way, that as you go through your mix and as you go through your mixing process, that when you get done mixing and you throw an EQ on at the end of the mix, that you're just doing some real fine work about, to really just kind of fine tune the very last end of it, and you've done all all of your spectral content shaping through here in a whole new way. And I certainly hope that opened up some whole new ways for you to be able to do some really good, precise EQ work in your mix. And I hope it opened up some doors for you to make some really cool stuff, and I certainly hope you enjoyed this series. Peace, hope, love. Have a nice day.